Hello, everyone. This is Anoop John from TheDropTimes, and joining with me today is Dries Buytaert, the founder and project lead of Drupal. Dries, who also co-founded Acquia, currently serves as the Chief Technology Officer and Chief Strategy Officer of this open source digital experience company. Thank you for joining us today, Dries.
Thanks for having me.
With Drupal in its 24th year, it is on a path of rejuvenation with new initiatives like Drupal Starshot. Today, we are going to explore pivotal moments in Drupal's history, the evolution of the community, and exciting things that is ahead of us as a community, including integration with AI and strategies to expand Drupal across the world. So, Drupal is now 23 years old, and it's a long journey, right? And the early days of Drupal, we had some really big pivotal moments like Kernel Trap migrating to Drupal, Howard Dean's 2004 presidential campaign. So I wanted to see if there are other moments in its early days that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's been many, to be honest. And it's funny because every time these big events happened, I always felt like, I don't think it can get any bigger than this. And then yet something bigger happened. But yeah, you mentioned Kernel Trap, which was a pivotal moment for sure when Drupal was only a couple years old. Howard Dean, presidential candidate in the US back in the day, switching or choosing Drupal for his campaign platform was a big deal because we got mentioned in all kinds of media, Time magazine and those kinds of publications that would mention Drupal, which was fantastic. Larger and larger organizations switching to Drupal. I remember like MTV, for example, switching to Drupal, which, especially back then, maybe still today, was kind of a big deal. Because everybody in the world knows MTV, or whitehouse.gov, the website of the Office of the President in the US, of course, switching to Drupal. That was a big deal and was a big pivot or a big moment for Drupal, obviously, because, you have to remember back in the day, open source was relatively new. And people had all kinds of questions about, can open source scale? How can open source be secure if it's developed by, the global community of people around the world? And, some of these milestones like whitehouse.gov switching to Drupal really were a testament to Drupal's scalability and security and gave a lot of credibility to the project. And there's many more, but yes.
So long history.
A long history, yes.
Yeah. So along these lines, one of the big things that we have as a technology project is the beautiful community around it, right? And we have had some amazing events all these years. The first Drupal developer sprint happened in Antwerp in 2005. And then the first DrupalCon as part of FOSDEM in 2005, where you delivered the first state of the Drupal presentation, which you have been doing ever since.
Oh, yes.
So what were your initial expectations from the event? And how did it feel to see the whole community coming together and having fun?
Yeah, no, it was amazing, actually. Like, it's funny, at the time I was doing a PhD in computer science and I had to go to Vancouver to present at another conference. This was in 2004. And some people in the local community there, Boris Men and others, they basically put on like a meetup at night in Vancouver while I was there for a non-Drupal thing. And it was so much fun. That was a very first ever event that I did for Drupal. And it was there that we decided, oh, we should do this again. And that eventually led to DrupalCon in Antwerp in 2005, as I mentioned. And I remember like maybe 30, 40 people showed up in Antwerp. And I remember like I couldn't believe that, 30 to 40 people would travel to Antwerp, where I was living, to talk about Drupal for a week, because while I was working hard on Drupal, I would spend a lot of my nights and weekends working on Drupal. It wasn't necessarily something that I would talk about much. I wouldn't really talk about it with my friends or that kind of stuff. So I was a little bit surprised that 30 to 40 people would travel all the way to Belgium, often from the US and other places in the world. And now we could talk about Drupal for a whole week, So it's very special. It was a great success. We had a lot of fun. A lot of foundational concepts actually were created there, like CCK, as an example that came out of that. And yeah, we've decided to do DrupalCons ever since. And I've been to every single one of them, and I think we've done like 39 or 40 so far. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of people coming from across the world for a lot of events, and the events have become more and more exciting over these years.
Bigger and bigger for sure. Yeah. Now we're thousands of people sometimes, depending
Yeah,
on where it is.
yeah. So 2019, we were really doing really well when COVID started, and that threw a spanner into the works for a lot of our local events. Now we are trying to revive all of that globally, and I believe it's going to have a big part to play in mobilizing the community for the bigger initiatives that we have, right?
Yeah.
How do you see the local community growing and getting back on track, and your thoughts on how we should mobilize as a global community?
Yeah, like Drupal is a global project, means people use Drupal all around the world, and we have communities all around the world. Many large cities and even not so large cities, they have a local community, and these are really important. Often these local communities are people's entry point into Drupal. Like somebody might discover about Drupal online and then like attending a local meetup or a local camp, which is typically a 2-day event in the Drupal world. They're very important to get people to get into the community, and only after they've been to local events, sometimes people will go to a global DrupalCon event, and so a lot of the success of the local communities, I think, depends on the local leadership. It only takes 1 or 2 people in a city to drive these events and to drive the local community. Sometimes it's as simple as scheduling. Like we're going to get together in this bar or at this office space, this evening from 6 to 9 kind of thing. And so I think a lot of it is about, encouraging people to like organize these events and to help them understand why they're important. And then on top of that, we can try to support them, because a lot of these local events, they need some infrastructure, whether it's like a way for people to sign up, or if it's a camp, they need a little bit of an event website where they can promote schedules and these kinds of things. So there are things that we can sort of, operationalize, if you will, by providing tools and playbooks and best practices to a lot of the local communities. And that will help them, I think, because if you have to invent everything yourself, and if you have to reinvent the wheel around the world, obviously that's not very efficient and can provide some friction for people to kind of to step up and organize. So yeah, I think it's really important that the local communities thrive. I think a lot of it comes down to the people in these areas, and I would invite all of them to organize events and camps, maybe even a DrupalCon, and yeah, collaborate amongst themselves and each other to see if we can operationalize parts of what we do.
Yep. And we have DrupalCon Asia coming up this year back again, and DrupalCon Barcelona coming up later in this year. Anything that we can show as a sneak peek to the community that's going to come out?
Out of these, yeah, I mean, as you alluded to in the beginning, like we recently at DrupalCon Portland, just a couple of months ago, we launched the Drupal Starshot initiative, and it's been extremely well received. I would say a lot of people are excited about and talking about it, and can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like. But in general, I definitely plan to give some big updates on the Drupal Starshot project. And
Nice.
yeah, so.
Yeah. And I think it's also going to be exciting for the community to be actively involved in this whole Starshot initiative, right? It is being mobilized across the world. Regular updates are being given, and people from across the world have been joining all these sessions.
It's been
So
pretty amazing. Like in the Dries note, in the keynote at DrupalCon Portland, I put up this like QR code where people can basically visit a page and then pledge to help, or like make a promise to help build Starshot. And we've had more than 500, maybe close to 600 people now pledge to help. And so like literally people from all around the world, which is amazing. And also people with lots of different skill sets, from front-end developers to back-end developers, but also project managers, people willing to write documentation, marketers, you name it. Like we've had so many people raise their hands, pledging to help. And a lot of what we've been doing now is trying to enable them and activate them and help them get involved. So.
Nice. Yeah. So taking a step back from the latest initiative, maybe taking a look back at our journey over the last several years, right? So we migrated. There was one big landmark migration from Drupal 7 to 8. And then we have had major architectural improvements in that process. We identified a lot of challenges as we operated as a community. We fixed all of that, right? So any learnings that we have incorporated significantly, obviously the ability to upgrade so easily now, right? It is now a dream to upgrade a Drupal major version. It takes, I believe you upgraded your site in like 30 minutes.
Yeah, my site is easy to upgrade, but yeah, I update it every time a new version comes out. So
so
I mean,
major learnings or takeaways from that, and then some and maybe some thoughts on the remaining Drupal 7 sites out there, how we are going to get them.
Yeah. Well, I would say like Drupal, as you mentioned, has been around for 23 years. And one of the reasons why we've stayed so relevant in the world is because we've never been afraid to change. We've always evolved. We've always, caught up, if you will, or led technology trends. Like something big comes around, we'll be amongst the first CMSs to implement it. And so innovation has been a constant. And I think it's one of the reasons why we've remained relevant. Now, up until Drupal 7, like we would make, API changes, Drupal upgrades were not backwards compatible. And so every time you did a major upgrade, say from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, people had to update their custom codes, and module maintainers needed to update their contributed modules, the modules that they were maintaining. And I would say Drupal 7 was really like a milestone release that almost caused like rocket ship growth for Drupal. Like, hundreds of thousands of websites migrated to Drupal 7. And like, we'd never seen that kind of groundswell of adoption before. And at the same time, there's also been a slight shift in the market where Drupal 7 was really appealing for what I call ambitious site builders. And these are people that aren't necessarily professionally trained engineers, but they can be low code, no code site builders, maybe sometimes more with marketing background, sometimes junior developers kind of profile. And one of the major insights is that like all of a sudden we have so many more people using Drupal 7, and not all of them were as technically savvy as they used to be. And that created a bit of a conundrum, if you will, where all of a sudden we realized that we need to make upgrades easier, because back in the day when Drupal was small and most people using Drupal were very technically savvy, it was fine. People didn't have any issue with that and could upgrade their custom code. But as Drupal got bigger, the install base got bigger, that became more and more of an issue. And so we really made a big pivot with Drupal 8, where we decided that going forward, we would provide a smooth upgrade path and that we would try to enable, like smoother upgrades without having to kind of rewrite the world. And so it's probably one of the biggest learnings. Like, I'm happy that we made a lot of the changes that we've made. Like, I feel like Drupal has a modern architecture that will serve us well for the next decades, actually. We use design patterns and principles that you can find in state-of-the-art web frameworks, like Drupal will have them. And in a way, Drupal is more modern than many classic other CMSs, like even WordPress, in my mind. Like Drupal has a more sophisticated, more modern architecture than some of these CMSs, which is great, right? It's great for developers to build on. It's great for module maintainers to work with all of these things. And that's because we were never afraid to make big changes to the architecture and to keep up with the times. But we just had to combine that with providing smooth upgrade path. And so we've gone above and beyond. I would say we've spent, can't even say months and months of hard work making upgrades easier. You know, months and months of work in providing backwards compatibility layers and management of deprecated code. And I think it's made a big difference. And so now we have this combination of a modern CMS with a modern architecture and a state-of-the-art architecture, but also, you know, much better upgrade experience than we've ever had before.
Yep.
So,
And I think some of these changes have been well embraced by the community. And although we have had challenges in perceptions that were created along the way, right? So
yeah,
as we move forward, I think it is extremely important for us to manage these perceptions, make sure that our communication to the community is around this, not just people who are already inside, but also people who are waiting outside to come into the community, right?
yeah.
So one thing that we have overcome mostly, but I think it is still good to address, right, is to see how Drupal is actually a very easy platform to work with now. Maybe some thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's become easier and easier to work with, but we still have a ways to go. I think there's still a learning curve to Drupal that other CMSs don't have. And that is because Drupal is more flexible, more powerful. And I think any flexible, powerful technology tends to have a steeper learning curve in general. But we've made a lot of progress in making Drupal easier and easier to use over the years. We've had, you know, initiatives like Claro and Olivero and Umami to provide a demo experience. We've modernized a lot of the backends and we've introduced new, you know, new interaction patterns in Drupal. So I think we've been in a trend that's making Drupal easier and easier and easier. And then with Starshot, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it, like we're even trying to do much more, much faster to really focus on enabling new people that have never used Drupal before to get up to speed with Drupal really, really quickly. You know, and there's some really exciting developments there of what we're doing.
Nice. We have also made a major change in terms of how we look at marketing as a community, right? We now have a dedicated marketing committee. We are actively looking at our branding, our messaging. Maybe if you can share something around
Yeah,
the
of
motivation
course.
around that and what
Yeah.
we can look forward to.
Yeah, like, you know, like I sort of alluded to, you know, Drupal, I started Drupal. And then when other people got involved, Drupal was really a CMS that was built by developers for developers. You know, I'm a developer. I started Drupal for myself, and then the initial contributors to Drupal, they were all developers, very tech savvy people. And honestly, we didn't care about marketing. And, you know, that's kind of shame on me, if you will. Like I just really didn't care about marketing. But what has happened is that, you know, Drupal has all of these amazing capabilities. Like often we're leading, you know, the world. We're leading other CMSs in terms of things that we do. Like I have many examples, but like we invested in web service APIs before headless and decoupled were official terms. You know, Drupal shipped with web services out of the box long before others, you know. Accessibility is now become very important in the world, but we made a commitment to accessibility, you know, many years ago, long before it became like a big topic, so to speak. Our caching infrastructure and how we can scale and perform is world class. I actually don't think I know a single CMS that has the same richness and features out of the box than Drupal in terms of ability to scale and you know, deliver pages fast. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Like Drupal has so many amazing features, but the thing is, we don't really market them well. Like if I go to a conference where there is an audience full of web developers, most of them don't know, you know, and so we've had a big lack of marketing, and it has resulted in people not really understanding all the amazing work that we have done and all of the great capabilities that Drupal has. And we finally said, enough is enough. We're going to invest more in marketing. We're going to tell the world how amazing Drupal is and all of the great capabilities that Drupal has. And so we've done that over the years, incrementally more, starting with the Promote Drupal initiative. But then in the last sort of 2 years, we sort of up-leveled that even more, and we created a formal marketing committee in the Drupal Association. It's basically a team of volunteers, including some board members, that have really worked on a marketing plan to try and market Drupal. And a lot of great things have come out of that. Like we have a new brand. We've gone to, for the first time ever, Drupal went to Web Summit, which is the largest web developer conference in the world. And we had a booth. We spent, I think it was $150,000, a lot of money, to have a presence there. And, I don't know, I think it's 80,000 web developers or so go to Web Summit. And for the first time, we were able to stand in front of like 80 or so thousand web developers. I might be off. I don't know the exact number, but it's tens of thousands of web developers. And, talk to them about Drupal, because we all know about Drupal, right? I mean, obviously, I know, probably a lot of the people listening, to this recording, they know about Drupal, but what about the millions of other web developers in the world that just don't know about Drupal? So over the years, I've learned that marketing is really important. And so that's a personal learning. And I wish we had been better all along in marketing. And so now we're trying to kind of catch up a little bit,
Catching upon that, right? How do you see media and including initiatives like the TheDropTimes, right, play a role in that?
I mean, it's key. I think what the TheDropTimes have been doing is great, like it really has, because there's so many great things happening in Drupal. And I think the TheDropTimes has been sort of a constant, there's been a constant cadence of like educating people about what's happening in the Drupal world. And I think it's been great. I've been following along a lot of the articles and reading a lot of the articles that you put out. So thank you for doing that. It's an important contribution. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So there is one last aspect that I wanted to touch upon around the perceptions, right? As a community, we know that Drupal has gone into the large enterprises and we have seen a lot of growth. But how do we see the maker ecosystem also correspondingly explosively grow and become a very large, thriving global community, right? It's already very big, but how do we take it to the next level?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. I mean, I think I do feel like the commercial ecosystem has continued to grow. I think over the years, there's been a change in who uses Drupal. As I mentioned, when Drupal was younger, Drupal 7, it was a lot of maybe individuals using Drupal for relatively small sites. And this was at a time where SaaS solutions didn't really exist, to be honest. And so like if somebody wanted to build a hobby website or a small e-commerce website, like they would use things like Drupal. Today, you have the Shopifys and the Wix and the Squarespaces of the world. So I think there's kind of a part of the market that is now served completely differently than maybe, 10, 15 years ago. And that's okay. And as a result, Drupal has evolved and pivoted more into the upper end of the mid-market and the enterprise. And I think as a result of that, the ecosystem has changed too. So now we have more web agencies that are a little bit larger, maybe not individuals or single or, like a little bit bigger teams tend to focus on a little bit bigger websites. But I think there's been a lot of commercial growth in a way. Like I think if you were to look at the adoption of Drupal, it has been maybe flat. And I think it's because of this rotation where a lot of the small sites are moving off Drupal to SaaS solutions. And then we have new sites coming in that tend to be bigger. So there's been a rotation, but so the total number of Drupal sites, I think, has been sort of flat, if you will. But if you were to look at the dollar amounts, I think the dollar amount has gone up and up and up. Like if you think about all of the organizations in the Drupal ecosystem, the Acquias of the world, the Pantheons of the world, I mean, a lot of the agencies of the world have gotten bigger and bigger over time. So means that the projects have gotten bigger and that there's been growth that way. If you look at the number of contributors and the organizations contributing to Drupal, that has been, I would say, steadily going up as well. So we have more people contributing today than 10 years ago. We have more organizations contributing today than 10 years ago. At the same time, we have a lot of incentives now and a lot of programs in place to help grow the maker ecosystem. So what we've seen is that a lot of people use Drupal, but don't necessarily contribute to Drupal. And we call those, the people that don't contribute, we call takers. and the people that do contribute, we call makers. And so we're trying to incentivize more and more organizations to become makers. We're trying to convert takers into makers. And we've done that through a variety of different initiatives, evolving the credit system, having a certified partner program at the Drupal Association, explaining people why they should contribute and why it's good for them, it's good for others. So we're really focused on that. We really want to promote the makers of Drupal. So I think it will grow. We have aggressive targets to grow it at the Drupal Association.
Yeah, and we already see that the certified partner program is picking up speed, and companies are getting themselves registered as certified partners. So it's all good news for the Drupal community.
Yeah, it's been a great change. I think a lot of partners have said, all right, I want to be a certified partner. How can I contribute? They're willing to contribute, and often they don't know how to best contribute. So a lot of the work that we're doing right now is actually enabling them to contribute and pointing them to things where they can contribute and have an impact. So,
yeah. So you've already mentioned a lot about the aspects of Drupal that has allowed us to come this far, right? But as an individual, what is actually driving you to lead this project over all these years? What is motivating you to? There's a lot of hard work. Millions and millions of man hours went into the project. Thousands, tens of thousands of people have contributed, and you have been leading it faithfully and well loved and respected by the community as well.
I've been doing this for 24 years.
Yeah.
It's driving me. I mean, it has evolved over the time, I would say. Like initially, I was using Drupal for myself, and what drove me 24 years ago is just building a website for myself. What drives me today, I would say, is the impact that Drupal has on the world. If you think about all of the Drupal websites out there, it's roughly 1 in 30 websites in the world. And if you look at the larger websites or the websites that people visit more, it's more like 1 in 10 or so. So there's a lot of Drupal websites out there. And I think about sort of like everybody that visits 30 websites, let's say, will visit a Drupal site, And so basically everybody in the world that's on the web will visit a Drupal site, which is kind of a special thought and feeling. So I think about that, and I think about how the web is so important for everyone. Like it has become infrastructure that has enabled people to share, has enabled people to stay in touch, has enabled people to make a living, has enabled people to do good things in the world. And I think it's really important that the web continues to exist. And I think it's also really important that the web continues to exist in a good way, in an open way, with a focus on security, scalability, accessibility, all of the things that we really value in Drupal. And that's definitely one thing that motivates me. Like I want there to be an open web for the next 100 years. I want my kids and my grandkids, if I have any, to grow up with a web that's good. That's not invading their privacy. That's not unsafe for them. That is, actually a good web, so to speak. And that's motivating. And I think about all of the people, thousands of people that have been impacted by Drupal. I get emails every week, get approached by people telling me how Drupal impacted their life. And that's really inspirational for me, and it makes me do what I do, It makes me wake up in the morning and think about how do I best spend my time? And it's really been focused on how do I maximize the impact of Drupal, on the world. And
it's
so it
amazing.
changed, but I'm very lucky that I can focus so much of my time on Drupal. And it's a privilege, and it's exciting. And I will say, like, people ask me, like, don't you have burnout after 23, 24 years? And I really don't, and it's because I think I'm also lucky that I have a lot of variety in what I do. Like I can focus on technical things, I focus on strategy, maybe the marketing of Drupal. I get to travel and speak at Drupal events. So there's a lot of different things that I do as well, which helps. So it's really the variety and the impact, I would say, that keeps me so engaged. Yeah.
Yeah. to think that it is actually touching everybody in the world on an almost regular basis is amazing. Just to think of that.
In a small way, of course, you know, like
Yeah,
most
of
people
course.
don't even know that they,
Yeah.
you know, we're
Yeah,
sort
and
of
the
the
fact
Drupal
that
page.
governments across the world use Drupal, right? Obviously, then
Oh yeah,
everybody is actually, yeah,
every government has Drupal sites, you know,
yeah,
thousands of Drupal sites even within certain governments.
yeah,
Some governments have standardized on Drupal, like in Australia with GovCMS. So yeah, and that's what I mean, you know, you think about all these things, or I think about the thousands of nonprofits and every improvement that we make to Drupal helps them fulfill their mission, you know, helps Amnesty International, Red Cross, Greenpeace, Doctors Without Borders. They're all using Drupal. So if we make Drupal a little bit better, that will propagate to all of these governments trying to serve their citizens, will propagate to all of these nonprofits with so important missions. And maybe even a small change that somebody contributes can help them raise a little bit more money, you know, or can help them activate a few more passionate, you know, contributors to these nonprofits, or it can
yeah.
help us share information in a little bit more accessible way so that we're more inclusive. I think it's the sum of all of these improvements and combined with the scale across, you know, thousands and thousands of important websites. It's yeah, what makes it so exciting
Yes,
to me.
indeed, it
And
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
And I think it should be a good reminder for all of us who are trying to contribute back, right? Even the smallest contribution can have its impact
oh yeah,
amplified because of the scale of the reach, right? And
absolutely,
it
yeah.
doesn't matter if it's a line of code. That line of code is going to go to hundreds of thousands of sites and millions and billions of
Gonna
users out there.
oh yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
executed billions of times a day.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it's
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so it's exciting. So the most exciting thing that is happening in the Drupal community is
Mhm.
the latest initiative, the Drupal Starshot initiative. And the community has been writing a lot about it, sharing a lot about it on social media, and maybe some thoughts on where we are now and some progress that we have made so far. And we have some deadlines that we are looking to hit by the end of the year. And
Yeah.
we have two major events coming by. Maybe some thoughts on the
So
Starshot and the
we've
brief
been
update on
working
that.
hard. Yeah, we've been working hard, like some days 6 hours or so a day on Starshots. But we made a lot of progress. Like, you know, announced it at DrupalCon Portland a few months ago. As I mentioned, hundreds of people sign up to help. Um, and so we've been really focused on how do we, you know, what do we need, what do we want to build? So we've been working on product strategy and defining the kind of the scope of the technical work. So that's one thing. We also had to put in place a leadership team. And so we recruited, you know, created a governance model and recruited people in leadership roles. We've done that. We have the first number of people in place. We also created an advisory board that we're calling the Starshot Council. We've had our first advisory board meeting even. Um, we have done a lot of enablement sessions because we had like hundreds of people willing to help. So we thought about like, how can we get them involved? And so we've done, I think, maybe 8 or 9, could be off, kind of Zoom calls or public webinars that people could join. And we would focus on how you can get involved. We would highlight specific issues that people can contribute to. We've emailed people. We've aligned the Drupal certified partner program more with Starshot, and we have a pipeline of I think it's almost 30 Drupal certified partners that are willing to contribute to Starshot. And so we're doing some matchmaking, if you will, between their skills and the resources and the time that they have, trying to map it onto kind of work packages that we have for Starshot. We're working on setting up a lot of the infrastructure, like Git repos and testing frameworks. That's underway. So a lot of different things have been happening. I should probably write about it more. We've been trying to keep people in the loop, but somehow haven't had a chance to blog about a lot of this progress, but it's coming along. Our next big milestone is DrupalCon Barcelona, which is in September. I think it's about 80 days away or so. 75 to 80 days is going to be my guess. And we hope to show some real progress there on a variety of different things, all the way from marketing to our demo of Starshot to maybe having the first recipes, which is one of the technical pieces of Starshot implemented. So like it's actually been a lot of work to get things off the ground. And I would say we're still getting things off the ground. So we haven't reached sort of cruising altitude yet, where it's kind of a more stable flight, right? We're still like taking off. But yeah, we'll continue to work on it and hope to hit our milestones.
Yeah. So one big thing that we are looking to achieve through Starshot, right? We are actually branding ourselves as ready for enterprise as well as the small businesses, right? For the site builders as well. And to not necessarily just for the developers, but also marketeers, right?
Yes.
Building on all our strengths and taking it out to the people now. So we are expecting a big push on the marketing and the growth and adoption of Drupal, right? Maybe if you, what do you think about how this is going to be embraced by the small business space specifically? We know that's already good in large enterprise and big in large enterprise, right?
Yeah, I think so. Starshot will do a few things. One, it's focused on the initial out-of-the-box experience for people new to Drupal. So we hope that will attract more people to Drupal. Like, I think a lot of people try Drupal, but then get overwhelmed by their learning curve and it's too much. So like we're super, super focused on making Drupal easy to use out of the box with Starshot, and also bundling a lot of best practices, things that are in like, people like yourself that have 10 years plus of experience with Drupal. They know how to do things, but like, how do we package up all that knowledge that is in the heads of senior Drupal developers that have been doing Drupal for many years? And how do we turn that into recipes so that we can give best practices to people new to Drupal? So I've been very focused on that. We think and we hope, and that's our goal, is that will make Drupal more accessible in a lower part of the market. Like we'll continue to focus, to be really clear. Like today, Drupal is very successful in the upper end of the mid-market and the enterprise, I would say. We don't want to give that up. Like we want to continue our leadership in these segments of the market, but we can move down market a little bit, and like in a way we've lost ground to WordPress there. Like we were strong there, but we've lost some ground there to WordPress, and so we want to take some of that back, like we think we have a right to win there and a right to play there. We're good at things. We actually think we can build something that's better than some of our competitors there, and so that's what we're going to go after. So I think it will help Drupal be more successful in the mid-market with medium-sized businesses. Like we're never going to compete with Wix and Squarespace on the lower end of the market, but in the mid-market, we have a license to win. We just need to do a few things, to make it easier for people to get started, to help people understand why we have a better product than some of the other CMSs out there. And I think Starshot will really help with that. Because like the cost of running a Drupal site with Starshot will come down. The entry point will become easier.
Nice. So it's good to hear that there's also a lot of chatter around AI and capabilities that Drupal already has around AI, and new initiatives around AI capabilities being integrated deep into Drupal. Maybe if you can touch upon that, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I would say like for me, AI is here to stay. And I think AI has a unique opportunity to redefine how people build things. I mean, it's already impacting like how software engineers write code, like it or not. And I think the next step is to use AI to do more automation, also for like tools like Drupal. And so there's no doubt in my mind that there's an important role for AI, and that AI can help improve the accessibility of Drupal, that AI can empower builders to build websites more easily. What exactly we have to build is for Starshot specifically is still to be decided. There's been some incredible innovation in the Drupal community already. And actually, early next week, I'm actually meeting with a number of the people that have been driving the different AI initiatives, like Kevin and Jamie and others. And we're going to talk and brainstorm about what we can do in terms of bringing AI into Starshot. And so we're going to look at what is the mission of Starshot, what are things we can do with AI to accelerate our mission. But then we're also, because AI can be polarizing, and I think there's wrong ways to use AI and good ways to use AIs. But one of the things I also want to do is establish sort of responsible AI criteria on how we will use AI and why we will use AI in a good way. And already a lot of that work is happening. Like, for example, our AI efforts started out by being using OpenAI, because they were sort of the first player in town. I mean, it's an oversimplification, but like the whole world flocked around OpenAI and ChatGPT. But already we've been working on an abstraction layer so that you can swap out OpenAI and bring your own LLM or use another LLM that's maybe trained more responsibly or that's using exclusively your own data. So that would be a good example, I think, of how we can build AI solutions the right way so that we can do it in an ethical way with respect for legal, you know, like, you know, in a legally correct way and all of these things. So like, I think AI has a place, but we have to do it right. I think having a human in the process is another important step, you know, for a lot of AI applications. Like, but I think it can have a big impact. Like, as an example, I can give you an example, a personal example. So like, I have a small Drupal site, like, you know, my site, Dries. It's a small site, but I have over 10,000 images. It's a lot of images, right, for a small site. And I would say the last 7 or 8 years, I've made a point of making sure that each of my images that I add has alt text, because I care about accessibility. I want to lead by example. I want to make sure all of my images have alt text. But when I started adding photos to my site, I don't know, 20 or 15 years ago or whatever, I didn't always add alt text. So I still have, I don't even know, 9,000 images or so, or 8,000 images without alt text, right? And I think it will take me, 10, 15 years to kind of fix that manually. And I think AI could help automate that. Now, I wouldn't want AI to automatically add alt text to all of my images. What I would want, and I think this is an example of using AI the right way, is if AI suggests alt text for my images, but then I still need to proofread it and hit approve or submit. So I think it's an example of how AI can help. Like, and it's not about my site, but it's about, a lot of Drupal users have a lot of content, and like a lot of people have this problem that I have with images and have it even at a bigger scale than I have. And so how can we help them with AI? I think we can, as long as we don't, as long as we do it responsibly, like allow people to use the LLM of their choice, allow people to approve things before saving things so that they make sure that we have the right alt text. Because if you save the wrong alt text, it kind of make things worse. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and like, that's not a great feeling. Like, we want to make sure we help contribute towards a better web. So anyway, it's kind of a long-winded story, Anoop. I'm sorry for that. But it's an example, I think, of where we can bring,
Absolutely.
it's a small
Yeah.
example, but there's probably 20 or 30 other things that we can do.
Yeah. Somebody recently shared a snippet on LinkedIn around how OpenAI was integrated to actually create a component right inside
Oh yeah,
Drupal, right? I think
yeah, and
J.
that's,
Yeah.
I think that's where we will go. Like, if you think
Yeah.
about today, you want to create a landing page or something, and you want to add a forum, a sign up forum with a few fields. You want the submit button to be blue. I mean, think about any landing, like, want a few images in there, probably like 100+ clicks, like somebody has to create the page, create the layout, add the images, then create a form, right? That's how many clicks, and then embed the form in the page, and then somehow style the color of the button. Like, it's complex, right? And even we can spend a lot of time making it very intuitive and easy. It's still a lot of clicking. Imagine you could prompt Drupal and say, hey, I want a landing page. I want 2 columns. I want the hero image. I want a form with these fields and a blue button, go. And AI could kind of put it all together for you.
Yep.
And then you could then take over, if you will, and finish it, like
Yep.
it doesn't have to do it completely like automatically, but at least it would be like sort of an 80% start. And then it's a lot easier for people because
Absolutely.
yeah,
And Drupal with its strong API capabilities, right? It's
should,
already ready to embrace AI because you
yes,
just plug in AI and Drupal can do the work for you.
yes. And it's a game changer because like I just talked about a number of clicks people have to do, but what I didn't mention is just all the things you have to learn, the mental model you have to build of Drupal. Like, oh, you have entities and you have this, and like the order in which you have to do things. Like these are all things that people have to learn, and that would all go away, and
Yeah.
would kind of help people get started. Now, the question is, can we do these things? That's the question. And some of the early experimentation that I think you and I have seen seems to suggest that we might, right?
Yep.
Um,
It's quite
but
exciting. The future is
yeah,
exciting
it's
for
very
Drupal.
exciting. And
Yeah.
I want to be clear. I want to encourage the Drupal community to experiment with these things, but I also want us to do it responsibly,
Yeah.
and I think it's important. But like, absolutely, we should be playing around with this. We should be trying things, and then we should build it the right way so that it's, yeah,
So the
that we're
future is
doing it the right
exciting
way.
for Drupal. The year is going
I
to be
think
exciting for
so.
Drupal. It's going to be a big year. Any final parting notes to the Drupal community for the year? Anything that you want to share with the community for what we are going to look out
I
for the
mean,
year? Short.
I think get involved would be like, we have such a special product, with such a big impact. And yeah, maybe my ask would be, think about how you might be able to help us if you have the time or the resources to help. Think about how you can help amplify Drupal's mission and impact, and if you don't know where to start, take a look at what we're doing with Drupal Starshot. We're really trying to make it easy for everybody to get involved, and we're really focusing Starshot on amplifying Drupal's impact. But please, Drupal is built by an amazing community, and we need more people to get involved in any way possible, organizing events, local meetups, local conferences, all the way to writing code, proving our documentation, and marketing. Like, I think we touched upon all of these things, Anoop. But any of these things are great ways to get involved.
Thank you so much, Dries, for sharing your incredible journey and insights with us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we are excited about the future of Drupal. Here is to many more years of innovation and growth. Thank
I
you.
hope so. Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for all you do as well.